Welcome to the most forward-thinking, inspirational podcast in this reality. The show designed to challenge everything we've been taught. If you've ever felt there had to be more to life, more to existence, then you're listening to the right podcast. Time to open your mind and dive in. This is the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast.
And here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'm going to stop using that intro. I think it's kind of funny, but children of all ages should not be listening to the show without parental supervision. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go into a long-winded dissertation as to who I have on the show as a guest, but guess what? You clicked the title, therefore you already know who's here. Craig McKee, our 9/11 specialist, who's actually gone on to speak about so many other things, but we tend to try to get him on here every September 11th-ish. It didn't work last year. It didn't work this year, but now we're September 11th adjacent, and there's so much going on in the world. It's just interesting to always sort of have you come back and again share a little bit about what you know about 9/11. I think the past few episodes that we've been talking about, very little 9/11 comes up because there's just so much going on, but you're the 9/11 specialist. So welcome back to the show, brother.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be back. It has been a little while. I think I've been with you 2 or 3 times anyway, but it's been a while. So I'm glad to be back and to talk about 9/11 and anything else you want to talk about. It's the right time of year for it, but there's been a lot happening. I mean, the 9/11 truth effort things are hopping right now. Like a lot of people are feeling an optimism about the cause that they haven't felt in a long time. So we can get into why some people are feeling that way.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, there is a massive shift going on in this world. There's a massive shift in energy going on virtually everywhere. So I'm fascinated to hear, what's got people, because again, this movement, I mean, there are people on this planet, tons of them, matter of fact, that never shared a footprint with the towers. So, I mean, if you think about it, that was 2001. It's 2025 now. There are some 24-year-olds, full-on adults running around doing adult things that never knew a world with the towers. So my curiosity on that one is what's got the community abuzz right now? And another thing too is why now in 2025 are we seeing so much quote unquote found footage? I mean, I've got my firm belief as to what this is, but all these new angles of the planes. Why do you think that we're getting these angles now at this stage in the game, 25 years later?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I've seen all the stuff that you're referring to. I mean, I've seen some things that are purported to be new, and especially with AI and everything, I think it makes people a little bit suspicious of new stuff, because then you think, well, how do I know that's authentic? And so so I can't help but wonder if there's if that coincides, if those two things coincide.
I firmly believe they do. I believe that the advancements in AI is allowing us to be like, hey, look, new technology or new footage, when in reality, it's AI. It's just pure AI. I mean, the amount of stuff that's AI right now, and again, the red herring being like, you all have access to AI. So how could we possibly have created something that's so far advanced if you've got all the same tools we have, which is the illusion, because the AI that they let us play with is 10 years older than the AI that they have.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely agree with that. I think there's always technology available to the powers that be, the deep state or whatever. There's always been technology they've had access to that we won't have access to, if ever, for a long time.
Well, I tried to get AI to do a dancing naked Craig for this episode, little GIF art, and they said, "Are you sure?" They said, "Are you?" We've checked the age restrictions on this. We're not sure we want to render that.
So maybe AI is smarter than we realize. Then maybe the version we've got is pretty much up to date. If
Let's get a naked dancing Craig. Are you sure about that?
I don't think
AI.
I don't think anybody wants to see that. I mean, it might get me some press, but
pictures of your feet, get some coverage.
So basically, you're probably right, and I don't know exactly what. Like, I would sort of wonder if I saw something that purported to be new, I would probably look at it and say, well, if this is not real, what is the intent of
why do it?
Why do it? Like, in other words, if the official narrative has kind of survived this long, what would be the upside? And but that kind of gets into the whole question that you asked about why people are kind of feeling optimistic lately.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is all. I think people watching have to understand that it seems like a David and Goliath kind of a situation. It has felt that way for the whole history of the 9/11 truth movement. Yeah.
Well, all of it. I mean, the minute you tap into it, you realize that you're just, or it appears that you're one peon up against a massive conglomerate.
Yeah, exactly. And so any sort of opening or any hint that there might be a chance of something good happening is going to be received with hope by people. So even though you might say, well, gee, that's still pretty much a long shot or whatever, we have to. You have to find some hope in little openings, because otherwise, why do it? Like, what, if it, you have to have some belief that there's a chance to break through. Otherwise, you just give up. And that's, you don't want people giving up, because then you really are sort of at the mercy of, the powerful. But basically, I mean, I'll tell you what's happened. What's happened basically, and this involves politicians, which is always scary when you're depending on politicians or.
One quick second, then. I feel like this button needs to be pressed. Hey, Rich, I'm doing it right this first time.
Disclaimer. If you're going to soundbite any of this podcast, you must soundbite it in its entirety for consistency and context.
You were saying?
Well, there is a retired firefighter named Raul Angelo who wrote an article for, I think it's International Fire Safety Journal, I think it's called.
Right.
And this came to the attention of a former congressman named Kurt Weldon, who was actually, I believe, vice chairman of the Armed Services Committee. And he has a whole story to tell about how he got sort of targeted for questioning things related to 9/11. Now, his area that he was challenging was not something I personally am motivated to get into, which is the alleged intelligence failures from 9/11. The reason I don't believe that that's why 9/11 happened. I don't believe that it was a failure of the intelligence services. I believe it was on purpose. But I don't
think anything about 9/11 was a failure. I think that it executed the exact way they wanted it to.
Well, that's right. That's right. But of course, that doesn't mean that everybody was part of it, right? Some people could have been misdirected.
Well, so here's in that same note. So, like, jumping topics a touch, I'm a firm believer that all sports are rigged. So you take all the sports in the world: NASCAR, Formula One, basketball, baseball, football, hockey. You combine all of the money and all of the revenue that they make. You add that all together, and Vegas still makes more. So to rig any given game, you need one guy on the field, like one or two absolute all-stars. The Patrick Mahomes, the Lamar Jacksons. You need one or two of the refs, and you need one or two of the defensive guys, like the Travis Kelce's, for example, to be on the take. The rest of the guys can bust their balls. They can make their $500,000 to $3 million, whatever it is, not have any true idea as to what they're doing, because it really only takes one or two actual men in uniform and one or two refs to rig an entire game. And this is the kind of stuff. So when I say that, and I can back it up and prove it, but I mean, I need more than half an hour, but I can certainly go into a dissertation. We won't go into it in this episode, but that correlates with what you're saying. In other words, there are some people that knew that this was happening that needed to execute certain things. And the rest of the people were blindsided by what took place, even though they were privy to it and took part in it unintentionally.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so when we're talking, when Congressman Weldon talks about intelligence failures, and he's a big supporter of the whole able danger angle on this, and able danger, I'm not going to be able to describe well enough the details of this, but it's basically Anthony Schaefer is the person who was part of this program, and it has to do with basically how 9/11 was allowed to happen, basically, by how they sort of paved the way for it. And the reason why a lot of 9/11 truthers aren't supporters of this angle is that they don't believe that failures, as we said a moment ago, were involved at all. So, but anyway, so this is Weldon's big thing. But Weldon when he read this article by this firefighter, Raul Angelo, and this got him thinking about the towers and about the controlled demolition evidence, apparently for the first time. So he is now, even though his main focus seems to be on, he's a big advocate for firefighters. And so even though his main focus is on how this should not have been allowed to happen, he still is open to a new investigation of what happened at the towers. And so that's why the 9/11 Truth Movement has put their support behind that effort, even though it may not be exactly what we've been saying. You can't be too picky, in a sense that if he can move something forward, then you need to see where it's going to go. And in fact, what's happened is his involvement has raised the whole profile of the whole issue. And now we actually have a sitting U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, who is now openly calling for a new investigation. And that's never happened before. There's never been a sitting member of the Senate or the Congress who has been prepared to take that position. So it's a big deal, really. And then I spoke at a conference in Washington, D.C. The week of 9/11, and Johnson spoke, Kurt Weldon spoke, and another former congressman named Dana Rohrabacher. None of these people are necessarily smashing the doors open to the whole 9/11 deception, but they're actually willing to give 9/11 truthers enough attention and enough credibility that it's starting to make it safer to talk about 9/11 now. And we've seen this also with podcasters, some pretty big name podcasters like Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Benny Johnson, Jimmy Dore, and others are now openly challenging the 9/11 story now. So even if they haven't, all got the story, even if they haven't completely grasped all the ins and outs of the story yet, the fact is they're now talking about it. And it's like enough time has passed that it's not career suicide to question 9/11 on your podcast now, which for those people, probably at one time they felt it was. So these things are all kind of coming together.
We knew it was.
What's that?
I said we didn't feel it was. We knew it was. And what I mean by that is, recently, about 4 or 5 days ago, I made a post that we got over 1 million views in the past 30 days. on our profile. And so I've been doing this since 2013, maybe even sooner. Like I built this, I started to build this when I met you, and I think that was 2013.
Yeah.
So I built this.
That's right.
I'm not going to mention any names, but I built this in the basement of that company. That's where it started. So I used their dollars. You know, they were paying me, and I was doing this. So
yeah, cool.
It's taken that long to get 1 million views in a month, and some of the people that I came up with, a lot of the people that I came up with actually are gone. So if I go into my messages of the accounts that I started building with, you know, when I had, you know, 500 followers and they had 20,000 type of thing, this was the beginning of the book burning, and it started with Flat Earth. Flat Earth was the very first time I ever openly noticed digital book burning. And so what does that mean? Does that mean you're a flat earther? Does that mean this? Does that mean that? What it means is, for some reason, anyone talking about flat Earth got blacklisted, shadow banned, their accounts removed. The ability to talk about it was just quietly swept under the rug, mocked and ridiculed. So I don't care if the Earth is flat. I don't care if it's a ball. I don't care. The only way it affects me is understanding and comprehending the manipulation. It falls in line with the statement, "The truth will set you free." You know, we're raised to believe that meant if you spoke the truth, you would be free of the burden of the lie. But I firmly believe now that the truth will set you free firmly means once you comprehend where you are and what we're doing here, you're no longer a prisoner to fear, negativity, scarcity, lack. You're no longer a prisoner to it, and you can literally achieve anything you want. So that's my definition or so that's what I believe that definition is now. But talking about hitting 1 million, it took 12 years, 13 years to hit 1 million. And right now we're at 1.4. So we hit 1 million a couple of days ago, and now we're at 1.4 million over the past 30 days.
That's awesome.
Which is cool, you know? And so people can easily say things like, well, what does that even mean? Blah, blah, blah. I'm just talking right now as a metric. And we always spoke against the narrative. And we primarily spoke of don't be a prisoner to your past. Don't be afraid of who you were. Utilize your strength. Utilize what you did. Utilize what was done to you to overcome things and to become a better version of yourself. To always put your best foot forward. And we were shadow banned. We were treated like a pariah because we talked about other things. So we didn't get outright deleted. And we also didn't get pushed because there are a few other companies that never even touched this stuff that we were friends with that are now over 1 million followers. And so I have a hard time believing any account that's over 1 million followers because there's a lot of digital dicks you've got to suck to get there. And maybe that wasn't so, maybe I could have been a little bit more eloquent when I said that, but I mean, it's the truth. And we weren't willing to compromise. So if it took this long to get us there, and if they're showing us, in other words, if the powers that be are allowing us to get over 1 million views, that's an interesting dynamic that I'm witnessing, which is what made it very fascinating to me when you talk about there are shifts going on in the community, to which I'm like, how could a 25-year-old community get new and interesting shifts? Well, you're seeing it. So somebody who's an outlier in this community, because it's not just 9/11 for me, it's everything. I pay attention to absolutely everything. And that I'm able to speak on it and get traction on it as well right now is a fascinating turn of events. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean there are white hats in there making this happen? Or does that mean that everything is happening exactly the way it's supposed to happen and truths are coming out exactly as they're supposed to come out and awarenesses are on the rise exactly as they're supposed to be throughout all communities? We're in a collective 100th monkey, I believe. So yeah, I didn't mean to jack what you were saying right there, but I love that both of our worlds are demonstrating the exact same result without even realizing we were looking at the same question.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I find myself theorizing a lot about why is something happening now? Why is it being allowed to happen now? What's the ultimate? What's the reason? When I think about my own website, as I may have told you last time I was on here, which is a while back, but got deleted by WordPress because I had it hosted on WordPress, which was a mistake. But so basically they went through a whole.
But it wasn't a mistake
where they
until the time that you got deleted. WordPress was free word association. It was the place to go.
Well, that's right.
They kiboshed you.
Well, that's right, and they sucked a lot of people into putting their websites on there, and then at around, I guess it was 2018, they just started deleting all kinds of them, like several that focused on 9/11, and I was fortunate to be able to export all my articles. So I was able to recreate the site, but it did cost me all the links that had been accumulated over the history of the thing. I had over 2 million total page views. Now that may not seem like a lot because it was started in 2010.
Massive.
Well, from 2010 to 2017, but it was getting bigger. Like my last year was about 560,000 page views in my last year, and then two things happened. One, in 2017, Google changed the algorithm, basically making it impossible for anyone to find anything on my site and many others, I'm sure, that they didn't specifically already know about. Like you can still search, if you know the headline of the blog post, you could still get to it. But what had happened before that is I had an article that I wrote about the Pentagon part of 9/11 that I'd written back in 2010, and it was still getting like 150 page views a day 7 years later.
Yeah.
And so it was showing up on the first page of Google. If you did a search for Pentagon 9/11, my article was showing up on page 1. After they changed the algorithm, it disappeared. Like you'd have to go to page 20 even then. I don't even know if you'd find it now. So they made it so it was all mainstream sources that show up now, and starting at that time. So it was like a 1-2 punch. First, they killed like 95% of my traffic, and basically made Google almost useless in terms of people getting to my site. And then WordPress followed it up by basically deleting the whole site. So there are new ways now it's podcasts that are a better way to reach people, it seems like.
Well, we had that one incident with ours where we were speaking of adrenochrome, and this was we had started a new podcast. This was like episode 8. I think we got up to 17 or 18 episodes altogether. But this episode 8, ended up getting 280,000 downloads, which was so rare that Spotify at the time was Anchor, and Anchor, because we were hosting on Anchor, took our entire show down. I've never seen that before in my entire life. Normally, like a site will remove an episode, like we don't like this episode, so Spotify's going to pull this episode. But because we were hosting on Anchor, they blew up our whole show. Which blew me away, which immediately had me switch this podcast into my own personal hosting. So they can't do that. Worst case scenario now, if Spotify doesn't like my episode, they can remove the episode. They could probably even remove my entire show from their platform if they wanted to, but I would still be on iTunes and I would still be on all the other ones. How do you get on how do you get on Spotify and iTunes? Like what's involved in that? So back in the day, it was pretty straightforward. You would sign up with, and what I would suggest to a lot of people was you just sign up with an Anchor at the time, and then have them propagate your site for you. So in other words, they do the initial contact, so that you're on the iTunes and the Spotify and all that stuff, and then over the course of time, it trickles out. Other podcast companies grab your URL because they want to propagate it and they want to have their eyes on it, et cetera, et cetera. So you end up getting everywhere. Now it's different. Now, I don't recommend going to any of these third parties. I recommend hosting yourself. So, and especially if you do host yourself and you do go through, you can go to the link on our page and save like 2 months worth of hosting. Then hosting is $20 a month when you go month to month. Actually, it can even be a little bit less if you're only going to put up a small episode, once every 2 weeks type of thing. But if you go for the year, it's like $180 or something like that for the whole year. And that's totally worth it to me for what it is and for what they get, because you also get stats with that. So you get to see sort of everything that's going on everywhere. And it saved my ass too, because I had been paying them and they had been creating a backup file for me as well. And so what happened with us over here was I had signed up for a rebuilder as one of the things that we offered was website design, and on super cheap, super discounted prices, because we were a GoDaddy rebuilder, reseller. So I decided that I was going to shift in a different route because GoDaddy wasn't offering enough website design techniques and stuff like that for me to do. So I said, we're not going to resell through you. We're going to do it through another company. And so I let the stuff lapse. But at the very beginning, like I said to you, I started this in 2013. And I started it with, a box of matches, and that was and a good idea. So, we were skimping our way through. And I signed up for the reseller, which gave me a website and a hosting platform. So I used the hosting platform to put the podcast on, and I used the website to build my art webpage with. So when I decided not to renew the reseller, we lost the compound interest from the reseller. So every year when the clients re-upped, we would get a chunk. So we lost that revenue, which is such a shame. Had I known now, I would have just kept it for life.
Right.
And we lost the art page. So my side business, my photography business, we lost all of the whole website was gone, and longevity, and I didn't see that coming. And the worst was we lost the seed to the podcast that had been running since 2019. So 5 years, and how the seed works is right now we're recording the show. I upload this to the seed. The seed then spreads and broadcasts everywhere. So now there is the Mental Mastery Alliance on all major sites that hasn't had an upload since episode 306. So there's a ton of people out there that believe that we just disappeared because we had to switch to a new feed, and we lost all of our marketing revenue as well. So it's like $3,500 a month just disappeared. And that was just residual getting paid monthly to have people advertise on shows that you've done over the course of the past 5-6 years. Luckily, Germany is still a massive downloader, so that old link is still paying us in Germany. The people that watch our show in Germany, so we're still making a couple of shekels off of that,
right?
But it's not a lot. So it was a bit of a snafu. But at the same time, I've had a ton of people tell me that since episode 306, the show seems like it's taken on a whole new dynamic, and it's a lot more deep. And this also applies to you. Instead of looking at it going, "Hey, I lost all of that material," you get to start fresh with a new idea that you want to have on your website, and you're going to be drawing attention to new people. Another thing that happened too, we're no longer shadow banned or perma banned on YouTube because it's an entirely new feed. So now the show is uploading to YouTube automatically, and it wasn't doing it before. Not YouTube as in it's putting my videos on YouTube, because I still haven't decided if I'm going to use this or not. We both look really good, so I might use this for snippets, but I'm not going to put it on YouTube.
Okay.
But and we should also get a pittance from Shure Microphones. Hey, we're using you got your name on our show. While I'm doing plugs here, ladies and gentlemen, I got the tinfoil hat right here, and we're getting ready to start selling these off the website. We were going to do it a few months ago, but one thing led to another, yada yada. And people have said to me, "Hey, the tinfoil hat, people are stealing your design." I'm like, you can steal it, you can imitate it, you can copy it, you can do whatever you want. But these are still proprietary mine. The way it's positioned, the writing itself, everything to me is like, this is a unique hat. And if you want to copy it, by all means, copy it. But we've got the design on it, and I really like it. So if you guys want a hat, we're going to put a spot up on the website where you can just tick a box off and be like, "Hey, once you guys go live, let us know." And it's just going to be one email spot. We're not going to send you a damn thing until the hats are ready. Then we're going to ask if you want one. I got to set that up. That's not up yet, but it will be, especially if this thing runs for all the years that it's supposed to run. Back to the podcast, Craig, isn't it about time that you had your own podcast? It's like a blog, except for you use your voice and your face sometimes.
Well, I actually sort of started that, and I have let it sit now for quite a few months, and it just had to do more with logistics than anything else. I had a buddy, another Adam, actually, Adam Ruff. He's a friend and a fellow 9/11 researcher, especially on the Pentagon part. That's where he and I connected originally. And so we did a bunch of videos, We looked at the we looked at things like not only the Pentagon and evidence related to that, but COVID and even the Trump shooting event from last summer. We looked at we sort of looked at some of the research that people had done about that, about whether the story was adding up or not. And then I guess it just I put it on the back burner. I was kind of involved with doing a lot of work with architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and that sort of I guess took some of my attention away. And I also was sort of, I had a friend that was helping me with the videos, and I kind of decided that I need to do that on my own. I need to sort of not be dependent on somebody that's going to handle the tech side for me during.
You got all the time in the world to figure it out, and once you do figure it out, it's not that hard. Plus, you don't need to have fancy videos. You just need to be able to record yourself talking, and then pass it through an editor.
Right. Well, they were pretty basic. Yeah, I mean, they were pretty basic. But I think I'm a little bit. My setup's a little bit better now than it was then.
You're also not as stressed out. You're in a more comfortable place.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I think the first video we recorded, I think I was so nervous. I think I introduced myself twice, or something. I was just, but I'm over that.
I'm tragically hip. What did I just say? Best screw up in the history of rock and roll. You don't even need to worry about video, honestly. Like, it's 2025, and I've done 2 podcast videos, right? So you still get great traction just having a podcast out there for people to listen to when they're driving around in their car.
Well, that's a point too. I mean, the idea of video appealed to me because of the ability to play clips, that depending on what the episode was about, sometimes it's useful to be able to show clips that you can then discuss.
People like it, but you can also put those clips into audio.
Well, it depends on it depends on what the clip is, right? I mean, sometimes it's entirely visual. That the thing that you want to get across requires visuals. But yes, you're right. That's certainly an option, and I'd like to get back to.
Well, let me know if you need a hand with that, because I would definitely love to help you get up there, and I want to be on your show. I think I remember having this conversation. I remember stating I want to be on your show. So I did something fun before you and I jumped on.
Yeah.
I know how much we all love AI. I'm starting to trust it a little bit more. John Connor's not too happy with me, but it's helped me with a lot of stuff. One of the things too with AI is I don't believe that, there's no 100% proof that you and I aren't AI, that we aren't another program running in the background. There is no proof that we aren't here doing that.
Well, the simulation theory has been gaining some traction in recent years.
It's where I firmly sit. It's the only thing that makes any fucking sense. You should see the movie The 13th Floor if you haven't yet. You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it for an entertaining movie and for the message that they're bringing.
13th Floor. Sounds familiar. I can't remember if I've seen it, but I know of it.
I've recommended it to you before, I'm sure, because you've got one of
those. Well, that's probably where I heard about it. Yeah,
it's one of the movies I recommend a lot, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't watched The 13th Floor, just go ahead and rent it. You'll enjoy it. Okay, so what we did was I said, this is the website of the individual that we are interviewing, Mr. AI. I said, now give me 5 questions that you think I should ask him. And I haven't even read them, so you and I are going to be just as surprised as we are together.
Oh, wow. This is...
So here's a little fun interview from the chat gypped to Truth and Shadows.
Oh, I'm scared.
Origins and motivation, Mr. McKee. What was the spark that made you create Truth and Shadows in the first place? Was it one single event that pushed you over the edge, or a slow build of doubts that finally had to come out?
Well, that's a very well worded question, I would say.
I'm an interviewer now. I'm a journalist. I'm digging deep into the bowels of these topics?
Well, I tell you why the motivation for the starting the blog. I may have had the motivation before, but it was once I became aware that it was very easy to create one's own blog,
Right?
and that was ultimately the thing that was the final sort of trigger. It was like, oh my God, WordPress, you can just, the templates are all there and you can just start. It's free and the whole deal. Anyway, I found out that it came with strings attached years later, as we've already discussed.
Right.
But no, I'll tell you what happened. In 2007, I was working at a telemarketing company, and one of the people that worked there was talking one day about the towers being blown up. And I can remember my reaction was very, like, I was skeptical, but I was like, well, it's possible. And then he mentioned the third tower, building 7. And my first reaction was to say, there's no way there could have been a third tower. We would have heard about it. The media would have reported on it. And now I look back on that almost like thinking like that, how naive could I have been?
Well, also you have a history in media. So back when you were reporting and doing music news, you were legitimately building questions, doing your work, gathering information, and creating an interesting article that the people would enjoy reading, a factual article.
Right. And before I did music, I was a news reporter. So that's kind of where I got that's where I kind of started, was in being a beat reporter for the Chronicle newspaper in the West Island of Montreal, and also the Suburban newspaper, 2 weeklies. So yeah, and I guess my motivation was always just to, uncover truth and stuff like that. I didn't really have any hidden agenda, but then I've since learned a lot about the mainstream media and how, it clearly does have an agenda to support official narratives and establishment positions and things. So, but back then I was still naive, and but when this person told me about Building 7, I watched the video, and then I started to, look around on the internet, and I started to immediately see that there was something wrong with this story. Mm-hmm. And then I got onto the books of David Ray Griffin, who passed away last year, I think it was, but he. He's written a bunch of books about 9/11, and his approach was really very he just sort of takes every claim and kind of dissects them all one by one. And so it's really a good way to kind of introduce yourself to what the evidence is. So I started reading that, and I realized it didn't take me very long. Once I started to look into it, it didn't take long at all to see that the whole story was a fabrication, that 9/11 was a false flag, and that, among other things. And then I got onto the Pentagon, and that's been kind of my biggest focus really has been the Pentagon, even though I've been working with architects and engineers on and off, and they focus on the towers, but I do that kind of because I think it's beneficial for the whole cause. But my focus, my pet subject, I guess you'd say, is the Pentagon, because I believe, and I think I have a lot of company in this, that there never was a plane crash at the Pentagon. There never was a plane impact.
The thing to me is, like, I need somebody to prove to me the plane hit the Pentagon. That's where I'm at with that. Show me a piece of fucking plane. Anyway.
Right. I mean, there's little pieces that one could conclude, look like they came from a plane, but
remember
it's
the cab, the evidence that a plane hit the Pentagon? There was a little tear in the back of the cab seat.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's funny you should mention that, because I've focused on that in very great detail. And in fact, I did a debate with another alleged 9/11 truther named Wayne Costi, who is pushing, he along with several other people in the 9/11 truth movement have spent many years trying to push virtually the official story about the Pentagon. There'll be one little detail they won't agree with, so that way they get to claim that they're not pushing the official story. But in fact, for the most part, that's what they are doing. So anyway, I debated him on the cab driver you're talking about. His name was Lloyd England, and I did a whole debate with this guy Costi just about the Lloyd England evidence. I mean, England, you know, he claims his cab was impaled by a light pole that was supposed to have been hit by the plane as it crossed the highway just before impact or alleged impact. And the whole thing is staged, like that whole taxi driver thing. It basically was staged to reinforce the official flight path. And the real flight path of the plane that did approach the building was not the same, which means that that the plane could not have caused any of the damage because it wouldn't line up anymore. So that was and the taxi driver's account, like, it really does fall apart. And I don't think he realized, or even the people that organized this realized, that there were going to be a couple of guys from California who traveled across the country and interviewed this guy and really got into the depth of his story. And you could, because of them, really, we can see that this story just doesn't hold together at all.
It's a bupkis.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that this pole, which weighed about 250 pounds, would be hit by a plane going 500 miles per hour, would plunge into this cab, and, as you pointed out, make a hole like that wide across in the back, not only in the back seat, but behind the passenger front seat, which is not even torn. So it's kind of reminds me of the magic bullet theory with JFK, you know, except it's a magic pole. So the idea that could have been the result of a pole plunging through the windshield.
I'm seeing stuff on JFK absurd. Right now. They're like, look, it was Jackie. Jackie shot him. And I'm like, this could just be AI. I don't trust any of this shit anymore. There's no footage that I could look at now that even, I'm like, no, none of it's admissible. It's all fucking trash.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because there was a guy that I met going to a Richard Gage lecture more than a decade ago, who tried to convince me that Jackie had been the one to shoot JFK, and he even sent me to a website, and I thought, I was curious to see what it was he was talking about. So I did go and I did watch the clip that he was talking about, and I did not see any evidence that she had fired any shots. So I don't find that credible, but
yeah, to hell with that guy. Let's jump into the next question. The next interview question for Craig McKee of Shadows. Ladies, your site spends a lot of time on 9/11 as a false flag, but looking beyond that, what other major world events do you think most clearly reveal the fingerprints of manipulation or deception, and why those in particular?
Well, I can give you several. Obvious. Well, one that I've written about. I've only written, I guess, one article, but it was a pretty in-depth article, and that was about the assassination of Martin Luther King. And I did an interview with a gentleman named William Pepper. Believe it or not, his name is actually Dr. Pepper. I'm sure he got teased about that a little bit, but anyway, unfortunately he passed away. But this is a guy that was part of the civil rights movement and was friends with Martin Luther King himself. And he was actually approached by a member of the Rockefeller family to run for president. In other words, they wanted him to be their hand-picked person, and he wasn't interested in doing that. He wasn't interested in sort of being their boy, and so he found out later on that when he said no, that they actually found somebody else, and the somebody else that they found was Jimmy Carter. So that was something I got from him, which was pretty interesting, and I don't know that I've heard it anywhere else. But anyway, William Pepper, to make a long story short, he believed the official account for years, and then ended up becoming the lawyer for James Earl Ray, who was the accused or the convicted assassin. Of course, he wasn't really the assassin. He didn't shoot anybody. He was a patsy. But Pepper ended up defending him and trying to get him released, and he never was able to do that, and Ray died in prison. But he actually represented the King family in a lawsuit in 1999, and the result of that lawsuit was that a jury found that agencies of the U.S. government and other co-conspirators had been involved in the assassination of Martin Luther King. And if you want to talk about the mainstream media and its how controlled it is, I mean, the fact that most people don't even know that court case took place is hugely important, because it should have been on the front page of every newspaper in North America. Well, but it wasn't.
We're still watching that take place right now with regards to like Charlie Kirk, for example. I don't want to make this a Charlie Kirk episode because that deserves its own its whole own show. But the real-time assassination of Charlie Kirk, it will be revealed later in life that the impact this had, the impact that this moment, whether it was real or staged, had, will be as significant as Martin Luther King. Like they're building something up here to make it seem again more divisive, more division, that sort of thing.
Right.
So that is fascinating. But yeah, so for me too, I'm going to answer this question as well. Not only 9/11, but every single serial killer back in the day was a psyop. And that's a fascinating one too. If you guys want to go down that rabbit hole, we won't go into it now, but that's a really cool one.
Charles Manson certainly would be at the top of that list, I would think.
Ted Bundy, if you look at the list of victims that Ted Bundy had, and the fact that Ted Bundy escaped maximum level security 3 times, and his victims were all the children of political playwrights that wouldn't play ball. Yeah, you can look into that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
quote me all you want, but you can look into that, and it's really weird. The similarities between who the daughters were and who the sons were that Ted Bundy targeted. And the results that happened after it. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. The human side of truth seeking. When you live in a world where you constantly see shadows behind the truth, how do you personally stay grounded? How do you stop yourself from falling into paranoia while still questioning everything?
Well, that's a deep question.
Yeah, buddy. ChatGPT coming with the fire today.
I could probably the previous question. We could probably get back to the previous one in terms of adding a few more examples. But anyway,
of course, we could go on for hours about that. Yeah, we're trying to keep this around an hour. The whole episode.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. But okay, but let me just throw out a couple without getting into the details, just because please. I would have mentioned them, and then we'll get to the human side. But like I've written about the Boston Marathon bombing, which I believe was a complete fake event.
That main female crisis actor that was in too many of them, they used her again for that one, and that was a dead giveaway too. Yeah,
she was there at Sandy Hook, and she was there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's you could do a whole show just on the Boston Marathon bombing. Anyway, so there's many of those kinds of mass. I don't know if you call them mass casualties. It wasn't really mass casualties, but it's certainly high profile.
Vegas.
Yeah. Vegas shooting is another one. Absolutely. Anyway, so back to the question then about, I mean, how do you, all you can do is, I try to just be cautious when I'm throwing out opinions. I try not to say more than I know, and and if I speculate, I want to be clear that I'm doing that, so that I know I've seen many examples of where people will leap way beyond the evidence, or way beyond what they actually have a basis for, which is fine.
Yeah, it's a fine line between research and ad hominem. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. You want to remain as credible in the sense that you take evaluating evidence seriously, but at the same time, you don't want to be closed-minded to questioning things. You don't want to just I can't stand it when people just scoff at the idea of something being a conspiracy or being a staged event.
Yeah.
People are kind of conditioned to do that.
Oh yeah.
It goes with the whole idea of conspiracy theorists and that label and how it's been used. I had a
conversation with my neighbor the other day, and he said something about there was a comment about Trump and Tylenol and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, he's not wrong. I agree with what Trump said. And my neighbor's like, well, the hell with this, and I'm just going to get out of here. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no. We don't act that way. We're not children. I said, you're 70 years old. Sit the fuck down and talk to me about this. Right? You know me well enough to know that I'm not an asshole. He goes, well, people are agreeing with Trump. I don't want to be part of that conversation. I'm like, well, this is how we get ourselves into trouble, because you know me well enough to know that I'm highly educated. And if you want to talk about Tylenol causing, problems with people, Tylenol has flat out said, don't take our product while you're pregnant. There was a ton of research that went into this in 2019.
Yeah.
And I showed him all this stuff. And this is a man that I respect. I like the guy, but every now and again, the Matrix is going to grab him and make you feel like shit for having an opinion. So it's not, in other words, it's not my relationship with my neighbor that was at fault. It was the Matrix working through him to make me question my ability. But no, you don't. You don't respond that way to the Matrix. You stop them and you say, hey, because I know full well the harder you push against the system, the more the system pushes back. And the system can work in and around you through the people right next to you, the people that are closest to you. If they're still heavily plugged in, they can fuck with your mind 100%.
Well, I'm experiencing that a lot. Yes. And it seems like the whole Trump thing has got people are so it's so polarized that if the word Trump even comes into something, that people will, that'll be enough. Yeah. And the Tylenol one is a good example where you see, pregnant women throwing back Tylenol as if to say, screw you, Donald Trump. And,
meanwhile, your kids are suffering because Tylenol's like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
Well, Johns Hopkins and Harvard both did studies that found a link between Tylenol use in pregnancy and issues like ADHD.
And Tylenol's never even denied it. So it's like, it's the weirdest thing to hear these people talk about this. Like it's some conspiracy. I'm like, what the fuck are you people on about? All you're doing is showing your ignorance, Yeah. So, what do you want to do about that? I don't fucking know. Well, and sort of the way I look at it too, it's like, if you're pro-vaccine and I'm anti-vaccine, I don't care what you do. I'm just like, hey, I just don't believe it. I don't trust it. There's not enough science behind it. I just don't want to do it. I'm not a Looney Tunes. Yeah. Right. If I'm pro-abortion or anti-abortion, you see, here's the thing too. We've talked about life on Mars. There's a minuscule amoeba. It's life on Mars. Right now, we can go into the huge dissertation. Is Mars real? All that sort of stuff. We can play these games. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about liberals. Liberals believe that there's life on Mars and that it should be cherished and that we should race to get there and save it. Blah, blah, blah. They also don't believe that abortion is murder. Right? So I stand in a position where I fully support abortion. If I am 100% pro-life, right? 100% pro-life, but I'm also pro-choice. And so people can say, well, how the hell do you pull that off? I'm like, first and foremost, I'm a male. So theoretically, I don't have an argument in this battle. Now, on top of that, I'm a human. So if I were to have an argument, which I believe I should have, I might prevent the murder of a child. And there was a moment in time where I wouldn't even say this on the show because that's such a politically charged statement. But I'm an asshole at the same time, and I'm okay with owning being an asshole. So while I'm 100% pro-life, in other words, don't kill anyone, I 100% say have the baby, people will tell you it's not your choice to say that. So herein lies the funny confusion. Because when you're pro-choice, then you can kill the baby or you not kill the baby. When you're pro-life, theoretically, you don't kill the baby. But the people who are pro-choice are also pro-mandatory vaccines, which is hilarious. The people that loved watching Roseanne lose her job are the people that lost their shit when Jimmy Kimmel got poked.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm looking at this going, like, this is ridiculous. Now, back to the abortion thing. I don't give a shit. If you want to abort, go right ahead and abort. It is the liberals who are doing the majority of the abortions, and it is the liberals who are doing the majority of the vaccines. Now, I don't want to make this a liberal left and a conservative right thing. I'm just saying that to those who are politically charged in any way, shape, or form, you're more inclined to want to get vaccinated, and you're more inclined to be okay with abortions. Which means if vaccines, and we don't know for sure, but I've already hit my button. So if you're gonna soundbite me, you got to get all of it, right? So the way I look at this is, if you want to kill the baby, just admit that it's murder and kill the baby and be done with it. That's it. I don't care, right? If you want to get vaccinated, go ahead and get vaccinated. If you die, well, that's on you, right? And I don't care. And so there's a lot of studies that say that there are vaccine injuries. There's a lot of studies that have said it. I have not done any of the studies, therefore I can't say that vaccines cause injury because I'm just a stupid talking head. But if there is a certain sect of people who want to be pro-abortion and pro-vaccines, and these two tasks raise the mortality rate of most people die after suicide, after murder, and a lot of them die after vaccines. Hypothetically, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know for sure. I don't want to get canceled. And just letting you know, if you've got a problem with me, by all means, attempt to cancel me because it is quite funny. So everybody's got their choice. Everybody's got their ability to believe what they want to believe. But if the conservatives, and again, I'm only saying conservatives because this is the labels that we've been thrown around. Conservatives don't want to vaccinate. Conservatives don't want to abort. Our numbers are growing. And the numbers of people who are, those who are 100% inclusive, the inclusive people, who are 100% non-tolerant to any opinion that isn't the one that came out of their own mouth, is fascinating to me. And I know so many people in the liberal community that have been staunch liberals forever. And even to the point where it made sense to vote in Trudeau because at the time he was saying some stuff. And Stephen Harper, on his way out, converted unprotected 146 wetlands. And that's the dumbest move in the world. They might as well have just opened the door for Trudeau and his pretty little coif of hair to show up. And Trudeau came in and said, we're going to go lenient on marijuana. So he's going to get the vote 100%. Right? He had good ideas. But at the end of the day, what happened with the Liberal Party is so many staunch liberals that I know are like, I can't support this. I can't get behind this. The way they weaponized the gay community. I mean, the gays that I know are like, I have nothing to do with that. I'm 100% happy to be gay, lesbian, bisexual. We're good over here. Don't put me into the fucking that other category. And so it's like, now we're seeing massive amounts of division, straight people, gay people, and then the alphabet community. And it's like, I don't want division. I want people to talk. And the only people that are fighting and the only people that are denouncing all of this stuff and putting together the craziest amounts of fights are the people that are supposedly or on paper defending the rights of the weak, the small, the little numbers. But it's weird. It's weird, the community that we live in, how everything has been reversed and bastardized. And I don't even know. I mean, I'm prattling on at this point, but yeah, it's just strange to watch. Again, the Jimmy Kimmel people. Hey, you can't do that. Freedom of speech. Nobody defended Roseanne. Nobody defended, all the other people. But Jimmy Kimmel, more people were upset that Jimmy Kimmel got that. So more people made noise that Jimmy Kimmel got fired than they did about Charlie Kirk losing his life. And that to me is a strange statement.
It's a very strange statement. And I would say, I think the whole right-left thing, I mean, to some degree it's real, but to some degree it's just used as a divide and conquer thing. Yeah. And the way I prefer to look at it, because I'm a I don't know if I would call myself a reformed progressive, but I mean, basically what now passes for leftism or progressivism, I want nothing to do with. And I've considered myself to be kind of a left winger my whole adult life since university, basically.
Yeah.
And now people who are just who at one time would have been to my right, they would have been like just left of center, whereas I was way left. They now think I'm right wing because I'm pushing back on some of on like wokeism and everything, and so they think I'm right wing, but I actually don't think I've changed fundamentally. I think this is all orchestrated for the purposes of dividing us.
Yep.
And I think where I think I'm the same as I always was is that I think I was always anti-establishment, and I'm still anti-establishment. And the people who at one time might have been more conservative than me, and now they think they're more liberal than me, they're just pro-establishment. They're pro-status quo. So they're sitting there, scolding me for questioning, woke kind of ideas, and they're talking to me as if I'm some sort of a right winger. And when I watched Charlie Kirk, and even though there are things that Charlie Kirk had to say that I didn't identify with. I'm not.
I can't agree with everything somebody says. I don't know why they try to push that narrative. I don't give a shit about half the stuff.
Well,
he says.
That's right. But he was an interesting person. He was an interesting person, and I agreed with some of what he had to say, especially when it came to where society has gone in the last 10 years. And I firmly believe this whole, like, the critical race theory, gender ideology and this stuff. And I'm glad to hear you say that people that have just, that say we're not down with that. I'm glad to hear that. But unfortunately, too many people have gotten sucked in. And if you question it, it's like, oh, you're a bigot. You must be a bigot. You must be transphobic if you question, where this is all going. And
those people are information phobic. They don't want the truth. They just want their narrative and their agenda to be rammed down everyone's throat, and they want to attack. And one thing I've noticed, because they tried to cancel me in the past, I've had warnings on my account that stated this account often shares false information. When you try to cancel me, you shine a light on me for other free thinkers and like-minded people to actually find me. So I'm okay with them attempting to cancel me, because the more they run their mouths, the better I look to the real people. Yeah. We can go on about that one for hours too. So we jumped right over the human side of it. Or maybe we actually answered that. When you live in a world of constantly truth and shadows, how do you personally stay grounded? Well, that's it. We have to stick with what we know. And for me, it's just operate with integrity. Don't fuck around. Like, operate with as much integrity as you possibly can. And if people don't get that, or if they don't see it, that's on them, not on you.
Yeah. And be open-minded, constantly looking for new information, and don't just be an ideologue where you select the information that supports your position, and then you reject everything else. You've got to look at everything, and you've got to realize that the deception that we live in a sea of deception, really.
Well, and there's no truth anywhere.
There's no truth anywhere. So it's like there's layers. Like, people who are successfully propagandized are convinced to just kind of that everything on the surface level is true. Mm-hmm. And so that's how they get all enraged about, what did Trump do last week or something. They're not willing or able to look deeper than that and to see like how they're being manipulated. And
most
to me,
people, and this is something that's used against us as well, is most people can handle one or the other. But if you offer a third option, they break down. They don't get it. So the powers that be offer us the mainstream, and they offer us the initial conspiracy. And it's up to us to be like, that's false, and this is also bullshit. I'm going to go over here and try to deduce what else is going on.
Yeah.
So here's another question for you. This one comes from ChatGPT, and it almost feels personal. Like, I don't know if you pissed off ChatGPT, but Let's see what we got here. So it
Why
says,
why does AI hate me?
man, what the fuck? The media landscape. Mainstream media says people like you are conspiracy theorists. Alternative media says you're truth tellers. How do you navigate between being caught in that tension? And do you think there's any bridge left between those two worlds? In other words, truth and or conspiracy.
Well, I think conspiracy theory is just a label that was concocted by the establishment to demonize anybody that dissents. So, and we could go back to the history of how the CIA sort of popularized the term and made it into an insult in a memo in 1967 that was sent out to all its assets in the media for the purpose of preparing them to deal with criticisms of the Warren Commission report.
Right.
So, and you can look at how there's a great book that I have by a gentleman named Lance DeHaven Smith, who unfortunately passed away, but it's called Conspiracy Theory in America. And it's all about the history of how that term was weaponized and how it's used. Now, I've written a couple of big sort of long features for architects and engineers and on the whole use of this term and how mainstream media I made a list of 18 different tactics that the media use to marginalize anybody that questions anything. And really, and the conspiracy, just using that label is really just their way of saying this person should not be listened to. Don't even entertain their argument because they're a kook. So it's like it's trying to bypass the evidence for anything.
And all these years later, what it really did was paint us. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, I'm now interested in what you have to say. It's like,
it's getting there. Yeah, it's getting there, and that's positive because, unfortunately, a lot of people like you and I who are thinking about these things maybe see that, but there's still a lot of people out there that kind of ridicule the idea that somebody's a conspiracy theorist. So there's a lot of work to be done on that front.
How dare you think for yourself? Always blew me away. Like, really? You're too lazy to think for yourself, yet you have no problem calling me an asshole. It's just wild.
Well, people like to think, they like to have an opinion. It's almost like they want to find an opinion that they feel good about and they can defend, rather than looking at the facts and then arriving at a reasonable conclusion. It's like like I know people that are so triggered by anything Donald Trump does that it doesn't matter if something 10 times worse is being done or was done in a previous administration or is being done it doesn't matter because they've got it's like their pet position and they're going to defend it to the death. So it's a real study in human psychology, and that's the challenge that truth movements have always faced and continue to face: is how do you break through? How do you jar? And hopefully that's starting to happen with 9/11, because you're starting to see, as we said at the beginning, it's starting to become a little more fashionable to talk about 9/11 and a little safer. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that, because a lot of people said, wait a minute, this is like, they weren't buying this story at all. And it maybe gave more people the opportunity to connect some dots that they otherwise wouldn't be prepared to connect.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I love that. That's great. One final question from the AI.
All right.
The bigger picture for humanity. If the masses actually woke up tomorrow to the kinds of things that you've been writing about for years, what do you think would be or would happen first? Chaos, liberation, or something we can't quite predict?
I would say option number 3 would be my. I don't think there'd be chaos. I think that's just that whole idea that we can't let people know what really happened. We can't let people know that the CIA killed Kennedy because it would just have devastating. I think that's nonsense. I think people would deal with it just fine.
I think it's more of the fallout. I think if people found out what Oprah Winfrey was up to, that would be more devastating than anything else. But I mean, the powers that be are wiping these people out. Like Anne Heche got wiped out. Remember that video clip of her like getting out of the body bag and trying to run away? You know, because she was going to rat on Ellen.
I certainly know about it. I'm not sure if I can't remember if I actually saw the clip or not, but I'm aware of it. Yeah,
well, I was privy to it. I saw it right away. I haven't seen it in a while. I don't know where it is, but yeah, that that she's like, oh, Anne Heche died on impact, and here she is trying to run away. And you see Ellen now without her. I can't make any suggestions as to what she might be doing with her Google Chrome, but she looks like hell, and she's wearing the ha 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 face and a lot of stuff. So like when I think it's not so much the what happens in the government. We all believe in government espionage. We've all seen enough movies to know that it's all real. The government espionage, the bullshit, the people that have to die, blah blah blah. What would really kill them is if they knew that we were worshiping celebrities. If they knew what the celebrities that were doing that we're giving our loosh to, I think that would certainly cause chaos to a degree that people are like, so this whole world, and what would collapse? The music industry would collapse, the movie industry would collapse, everything that's sort of media and information based would collapse. It's the same reason why all those news anchors got canned during Me Too. Anyone that wasn't with this new narrative that they were about to start pushing, they got removed. There was that mass exodus right before Me Too as well, where a ton of celebrities died mysteriously. That 1 year where I think it was like 2019 or whatever, like hundreds of celebrities died. My take on that is celebrities aren't real to begin with. They're just characters. And this Tyler Hansen guy or whatever his last name is, the fittest flat earther, he's the guy that goes around talking about how, a lot of celebrities are wearing masks and this, that, and the other thing. And maybe it's chaos, but maybe he's onto something. So for me, I look at this and I'm like, I want to know what the end result is or what the major benefit is to manipulating us, or why can't we have the information, or why do we have to play in the lie? Like, why can't you just tell us what it is, and then we can make a decision as to what we want to do with it? I don't understand
that's
why.
The last thing they want.
But I don't understand why you and I can sit here and I can have all of this expensive tech, like the microphones and the boards and the computers, and you and I can have these conversations and we can go about our business and just talk about this stuff. Like the fact that all of this stuff has been created for us to converse about. That it's to the point where these guys may not be bad guys. They may have to be doing this. I read somewhere, these were the soul contracts. Like if you decided that you wanted to be P. Diddy, for example, in this go round, you would have had to have done 3 other lifetimes where you were getting destroyed. As a child, you had to experience ultra pain or something like that to have this. So I don't know, I don't know what the end result is or what the deal is, but I do know that for us to appreciate who we are and where we are, there needs to be pluses and negatives, pros and cons. There needs to be a myriad of experiences for us to be like, I like that. I don't like that. I want to do that again. I don't need to do that again. That sort of stuff. Like, all the negativity. I think this world would be boring if you and I didn't have the opportunity to have these conversations. Because without 9/11, maybe I don't start a podcast. Why the fuck would I want to start a podcast if everything was tickety boo? If everything was just status quo and normal, and we all had our little stupid job where we go to work for 5 hours a day or 12 hours a day, however long people work, 4 days a week, and you come home with your paycheck and you pet your wife and you drink your beer and you go to bed. Like, that's boring too. So the chaos that we have, what we're experiencing, what we're seeing, what we're doing, to me, all of it has to be the thing. So to answer that question again, I like the idea of chaos if they found out what was going on with DEWs and the Oprah Winfreys and the Mauis and the Pearl Harbors and the Black Toms. If they really found out, if people really truly understood that every single item that they've ever seen from the television was a lie, I think that'd fuck a lot of people up. But and how it would fuck me up too would be like, holy crap, they actually admitted it. But I guarantee you, the first time they admit that, the masses would be like, yeah, whatever. This is just a ruse. This is a Key and Peele skit, Well, and that's another thing too. We were talking about how I finally went over a million views. That Key and Peele meme had a lot to do with it. So, all my stuff is pro-life, pro kindness, pro self-awareness, pro-betterment, all this sort of stuff. And that one reel was him pouring Splenda into his coffee, then a nuclear bomb going off in the distance, him putting the Splenda down and pouring sugar into his coffee. Like, in other words, it's over. I might as well pour sugar into my coffee. Right? So that end of the world.
I've not seen that.
That end of the world meme is the one that skyrocketed me. So that's kind of doom and gloom. That's like negative energy that, now that skyrocketed me. So it's like even the millions of memes that I put up that are pro everything and that are kindness, it's this one that fucking takes us to the next level. Not that I'm complaining. It's just fascinating that that's the one that gets the push.
Well, my article on that I was telling you about before about the Martin Luther King assassination, it actually got 100,000 page views in one day.
Beautiful.
At one point, and it was because somebody must have posted it on Twitter, and it got passed around. I mean, I've never had not seen anything like that before or since. But it's funny that just you hit the right spot, or the right person shares it with the right other person, and that's been the only kind of moment I've had quite like that, where it's broken through. But it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that, and I think of the world as kind of like the Matrix. That's kind of the movie that I think is the
best describes the situation that we're in. Yeah,
well, I think so. It's like some people know we're in a Matrix, and most people don't.
Yeah.
And most people don't want to. Like the character in the Matrix that would rather eat a delicious piece of steak, even if it's not real steak.
Yeah. I know this isn't real, but my sensories tell me it's real. Ignorance is bliss. Put me back in and make me rich. Yeah, it's not how it works. Once you're free, you can't go back.
Well, that's how I feel about. Yeah, I feel like. Yeah. What's the thing? Once you're a pickle, you can't go back to being a cucumber.
Correct. And that brings us to the end of the show. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to this and to what we've talked about?
Well, I'll just let people know that I spoke at the Turning the Tide 9/11 conference in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago. And if you're interested in catching any of that, including my presentation on the Pentagon, which is on day 3, you can check that out on the Redacted YouTube page, because Redacted live streamed the whole event.
Nice.
So if you go and check out their YouTube channel and dig back a couple of weeks, you'll find my Pentagon presentation and a subsequent debate with some of my arch nemesis. Is that what's the plural of nemesis? Nemesi? Yes. So yeah, that I would just say that, and then maybe check out I have a Substack page which is called Thought Crimes and Misdemeanors. You could check that out, or Truth and Shadows, which is my original site.
Amazing. That'll all be in the show liners too, ladies and gentlemen. So you'll be able to take a look at that shortly.
Awesome.
And yeah, just follow Craig, see what he's up to. If you have any further questions for Craig, you can send them to us if you can't reach out to Craig. But yeah, we'll definitely have Craig back on in about a year's time, roughly, give or take.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great little interview. I always love having you back on because there's just so much that changes, and it's also nice to stay in contact with an old friend. Certainly back in the day there weren't so many people that we could connect with or talk to about this stuff. So it's always nice to be like, oh, you're crazy too, just like me. Look at that. Let's go be crazy together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on today. So in the infamous words of Red Green, if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Mental Mastery Alliance podcast. Stay connected with us directly through the mentalmasteryalliance.com. You can also join the discussion on Instagram at instagram.com/the Mental Mastery Alliance. Let the team know you're listening by using the hashtag TMMA or tagging us at the Mental Mastery Alliance. To have your voice heard on the show, leave a voicemail or send a text to 647-338-1265. Long-distance charges may apply. If you love us, leave us a review. If you hate us, you spend your time in weird ways, but also leave a review. Every review on iTunes tickles the algorithm, helping us grow. Until next time, unity over division. This concludes the most surreal portion of your day.
You got it, Pontiac.